Oh shit. Let's do that. Hey, uh, I just turned off my notifications before I started because, hey, we all know I'm not that bright. Because look who I got today. Uh, there's a story behind this. We'll get into that real quick. This is Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid and my very special guest, JJ Alexander. What's up, my man? How you doing today?
I'm alive.
Uh, yeah, because I'm out there. I'm essential, if you will. I'm dodging the COVID. So I'm doing my thing, but I'm staying safe. I wash my hands. I wash my ass. Maybe not in that order. You never know. Could be a question mark. But hey, how are you doing? You all right through this whole bit?
Yeah, shit really hasn't changed for me. Y'all are like complaining about being stuck indoors. This has been my life for 18 months, so it doesn't matter to me.
Oh, so both quarantine yourself for shits and giggles? Is that what's going on?
No, just basically with all the surgeries and everything, and between the hospital time and being home. When I'm home, the doctors are like, "You're not allowed to do any to get off your feet. Like you have to stay on your couch." So I've been stuck like this for a while.
Wow. I apologize. I'm not wearing a wrestling shirt. I got in wicked late from work. So, I didn't get a chance to change. I kind of smell like chicken wings and pizza right now. So I might not change for the rest of the night because I got 2 more interviews after this. We'll see. So anywho, a while back, yeah, I got something in my, and I know it's not COVID, but I do got a booger in my eye for some reason. So a while back, me and JJ, we sat and we talked, and we got to get to know JJ. But son of a bitch, that card, I had 100 gig worth of material get corrupted, and I lost 2 interviews, and JJ was one of them. So we corresponded, and we are like, hey, why don't we kind of bring that back? So here we are. Now what we do, and I know you haven't been in wrestling too much, like you said, you've been down 18 months, so it's been a while for JJ. But what I like to do is be able to talk to the fans and maybe tell the story of JJ, because you have a footprint in our local scene, and over the course of Ooh, yeah, I didn't say it, you did, but that was a zinger. Ooh, that was a good one. I like that one. I won't use that though. I would feel kind of funny use. I don't know. I might use it. JJ's got 1 foot. Oh God, that is hilarious shit right there. Oh my God. We'll get into that later too. So what I like to do is start with, I met you as a manager. You had this big trench coat. You had the shades on. You were managing crazy, insane killers. I mean, and it goes from Jimmy Mees to Big Jim to Jack Kruger to Big Jim Sullivan to, I mean, there's many more that I missed, but that's when I first met you. A little, and when I mean little tiny place in Torrington. It was a little Sons of Italy or something like that. And I went on a whim to go check it out. And yeah, here you come out doing your thing. And I'm like, who the fuck is that? So what I like to do is kind of talk to the fans of the managerial part of, we'll get into everything going on, JJ, but let's talk about that managerial time you had going on, because you were doing something behind, and I know I'm going to get this wrong because it's been a while. It's not the revolution. No, the revelation.
There you go.
Talk to us about your whole managerial position, what you did, who you were behind. And, like, you did some cool shit out there. And, man, you drew me into your character. So give us a little some of that.
So you want me to start as when I first became a manager, or when you first saw me as a manager?
Whenever, take us on a ride. This is an open forum. It doesn't matter. I got nothing written down. So whatever you want to talk about, you give us.
All right. So let's see. Started in the business in late 2004. That was when I first, really started. And I was just doing ring crew, commentary, ring announcing, yada, yada. I didn't actually start managing until 2007.
Okay.
After I'd gotten some time under my belt, after I'd actually gotten some in-ring training and all that. First person I actually managed was just incredible.
Really?
Yep, I actually managed him before Jimmy Mees, so suck it.
um, I'd rather not suck it. I mean,
I wouldn't tell you.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, that's cool. I can accept that.
Yeah, but no, yeah. So I that he was actually the first person I managed. Then took a couple, reverted back a couple of years, doing some other stuff. Went back to commentary, went back to ring announcing, all that stuff. When I started managing again, it was actually 2011, because I took some time off out of business after Mikey Milano passed, and when I started again, I was managing up at New England Frontier Wrestling, which turned into Revival Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
When I started up there, I came in as a commentator, and that was when I first formed the stable known as Defiant Inc. Whereas I brought in Jimmy Mees and Bobby Ocean and Andy Sweet and Jose Perez.
Whoa, Pahuze. Defiant Inc. had Bobby Ocean, Jose Perez, Jimmy Mees, and all. Wait, what?
And Dave Cole and Big Jim Sullivan and Nocturne and Billy King and Doug Summers.
What? Holy crap! Defiant Inc. That sounds like how do I put this? Don't fucking get in my way, Inc. With all of those names, holy crap! How do you keep a handle on so many personalities as a manager? Because that's a lot of kooky right there.
It was a lot of kooky going on, but we were kind of intertwined throughout every story we could be up there. We ran roughshod through that company for about 2 years until we had a big blow off where I split from the stable. It was a double turn with a War Games match where Defiant turned babyface, I turned heel on them. I went my own way. That's when Jimmy Mees started taking over managing them full time, and then they dwindled. And then the rest of my time in Revival Pro, I was managing here and there. I was supposed to start forming something bigger, but unfortunately, Eric Newton, the owner of the company, he passed away. So it never really got off the ground. A couple of spots here and there. I managed Chris Dickinson up there. I managed Drake Evans for a little bit. I managed the Proletariat Board of Moldovia from Chikara. Originally going forward, I was supposed to start forming a stable up there with the Batiri and Nocturne and a couple other people. It just didn't come to be. It was after that myself and Jimmy Mees got in contact with Ed Wood from Interspecies Wrestling. We opened up Dissension Pro Wrestling, and the first show there was where I had reunited with Defiant Inc. just to turn on them later on in the evening to first introduce the Revelation.
Oh, so I was actually confusing the Revelation and Defiant Inc. I was kind of mixing them up because, again, I don't know a lot of the history because I've only been in a game for a few years, maybe like 2016-ish. But previous, years way back, I would go to like the Sports Palace in New Britain for shows. I've been to a couple ACW shows when Jason Knight was running the ACW. So, I mean, I've got my feet wet, but way back. And then when I got, when I dipped my toe back in the pool in 2016, I'm like, dude, this is my gig right here. And I haven't stopped. So yeah, sorry for mixing up the history between Defiant Inc. and Revelation, because I've seen you with so many different guys and I'm trying to think back and I don't have the best of memories. I think it's,
it's fine.
Well, the Devil's Lettuce doesn't help, I'm sure, but so Defiant Inc., you guys were, again, running roughshod. Now you got this Revelation going on, and there was like Jack Kruger, if I'm not mistaken. Could you tell us some more a part of that Revelation camp?
Right. So what happened was, while we were looking back into getting to, starting up again, I wanted to do my own thing. So I had been looking at different talents in the area who you don't really see in Connecticut that much, who had a different type of flair to them. The first person I contacted was Jack Kruger. We actually met through some other stuff in our social lives. We crossed paths, and then we found out who each other were in the wrestling business. So that was a happy accident. But there was Kruger, there was Dante Draconis, and there was Setherin from up in Mass. They were the original 3 members of the Revelation when we first formed, and then a couple of events later was when we added it.
I think he froze. He's Pahuzade right now. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back because I've run into this crap before. Sometimes they kind of come back. Sometimes they don't. I don't know. We're going to see. And if he takes off and we have to maybe give him a call back, we're just going to stop here and hit the record button. Yeah, see, he's frozen. I think I'm just going to hang up and see what happens. To be continued for this. Well, I told you we'd be back. This is going to be the continuation. That ought to be fun. Where we last left off, and you were frozen like a motherfucker. You were like, so where we last left off, we were talking Revelation and the 3 original members. Please continue if you could, sir.
Okay, yeah. So the 3 original members were Jack Kruger, Dante Draconis, and Setherin. A few events later, we added on Thorson Creed, who has since retired from the business. He had a debilitating back injury that he ended up having. It was a neck injury. So he had to get out of the business. So it was really just those core 3. We had one additional member briefly that didn't work out that I'm not going to mention.
Okay. Don Kincaid. Never mind.
It was just someone that didn't get it, and I'll put it at that.
Hey, that's fine because when you're trying to do wrestling, wrestling's a give and take, a little compromise, if you will. But sometimes, like you said, sometimes people just don't get what you're trying to portray as the character or as the faction, if you will, and the direction you're taking it. It doesn't always work out, but that's okay.
Exactly. Right. And so the bulk of the first couple of years of Descent Pro Wrestling, the main storyline going through it was Defying Inc. versus the Revelation. And it was at our second to last show that we actually had the big blow off to that. We decided to end it. We squashed it. We went our separate ways. And we were just starting a time of rebuilding when I ended up in the hospital. It would have ended up in the hospital. And then we're all trying to get back on the same page. And we were actually thinking about running again, like mid-2020. And then this happens.
Wait, you were going to run again in 2020?
Yeah.
DPW?
Yeah.
I would have been there. I you know what? Ever since that first time that I did go to DPW at the Sons of Italy, I've went to, I think, every single one. And I know there's very few, like a year, maybe 1 or 2, but I've been to all of them. And dude, we have a good time there, man.
Yeah. I mean, because the plan was I have a plan structured for us to continue in Torrington, even though that town's kind of dying down as far as attendance goes. But I mean, we'll still stay faithful to it because that's where we started. But we had a plan to run in Torrington, and then we were actually going to be branching out to Bristol and to Newington. And hopefully that's the case.
I'm originally from Bristol, but I'm really not that far from Bristol right now.
I can tell by your uniform.
Where the fuck are you gonna have wrestling in Bristol?
Oh, I have a couple of inns and a couple of places, thanks to family connections. So there's a couple of places where I can run.
Well, that didn't answer a damn thing that I just asked, but that's okay because I like to be surprised as a fan. I can't wait to see when that happens.
One of them I actually ran in before under a different company name, and we only ran one show. The company never got off the ground.
Okay.
And one of the people involved in that tried to claim that place for his own, and that didn't end badly.
Oh, well, again, I'm intrigued.
You can take that to the banks.
I got a shitty banking account, so I don't really go there much lately.
It was the reference to it. Never mind.
uh,
That wrestling didn't jam with me.
yeah. Oh yeah, I got that. So now, so I know that, you know, once this shit kind of boils over, and I know that we will get some kind of control under what's going on right now in the world, and wrestling is going to come back. With you saying you're going to bring wrestling into Bristol, I am so intrigued. I can't wait because, I mean, nobody brings, and I kind of gave it a shot at a venue, and I went. The guy, I made an appointment with the guy, right? So I even had a mutual friend of ours meet me there so I could have a little defiant behind me, you know, a little defiance behind me, just to go fuck with Kincaid kind of thing, you know, because you never know. But anywho, this guy never showed up. So I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to do a follow-up, because if you can't keep an appointment, then what the hell is going to happen down the road in the future? So I just kind of ixnayed it. Maybe I should have followed up, but is what it is. So again, I can't wait till you bring wrestling to Bristol, because I'm down with that. Now, we were talking DPW, which is Dissension Pro Wrestling. Now, please give the fans a little history of that, because it's a still active promotion. And like he said, 2020, there was some plans. So give us a little history and where it's gone. And where obviously you're taking it still actively, but give us a little history of DPW.
So Dissension Pro Wrestling was basically a continuation. Originally, a whole bunch of us originally started in the company Defiant Pro Wrestling. Hence why when we went branched up on our own, we formed Defiant Inc. and yada yada. Defiant Pro Wrestling was owned by Mikey Milano. That was his company that he did when he branched off from Jason Knight and Assault Championship Wrestling. When I first got in the business, I was doing ring crew for ACW at freaking Arcadia, New Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike formed his own company, started his thing. We ran in Southington, Waterbury, Naugatuck for a good amount of time, from 2004 until about 2009. We actually had two schools. The first one was on East Main Street in Waterbury, where we ran weekly shows. There was a block of time where in the course of a year we ran about 38 shows, because we just
was that the House of Pain dojo?
No, but it was on the same block as the House of Pain dojo.
Okay.
The House of Pain was the little spot at the end of that plaza. We were at the beginning. We were the Proving Grounds dojo, where Jason was a trainer for a time. But that's where Just Incredible was a trainer. That was where I first started my in-ring training. Mm-hmm. We lost the lease on that place. Took about 9 months off. Started running again. Opened up another place, which was known as the Defiant Academy, which was right on the Waterbury-Wolcott line, which, amazingly enough, my condo currently is about 2,000 feet away from that location. It's across the road. So, and we ran there until Mike passed. That was a big tragedy for all of us. He was only in his early 40s. He had he started having strokes out of nowhere, and then he was gone. And it was rough on us. We all took time off. But we wanted for years to be able to come back, and we just didn't have the financial backing in order to do it. That was when Ed Wood came along, and he saw the fire and the passion we had for this, and he said, "I'm willing to go into business with you guys if you're serious." And Wood's been probably one of the greatest friends I've had in the past few years, because he's a man of his word. And that's a lot for him to do, especially because he's already got his thumb in the pie over at Interspecies Wrestling. So we're constantly trying to make sure we don't butt heads with them with everything he's trying to do with them, as far as time frame of running, area, all that stuff. Because we're basically sister companies, so we want to coexist.
Okay. I have met Mr. Wood a couple times, probably more than a couple times. Again, my first time at DPW, he was right there at the door, taking the cash, handing the tickets out. And when I first got there, and he was the very first person I met, besides a couple, I was with my girl at the time that we went, and so we get in the door, and I go, "Hey, how much is this gig?" And he's like, $15. And I go, "Shut the fuck up, $15." I go, "That sounds criminal to like have wrestling for $15." And he goes, "So," I go, "Where do we sit?" He goes, "Wherever the fuck you want. You pick your seat." And I go, "Dude, I love indie wrestling. This is the shit." And yeah, man, we had a great time over there. And again, Mr. Ed Wood, I've met him a few times. Then he turned me on that he was, for, I guess, head spearing interspecies or whatever it was. And I never got a chance to see interspecies because they were supposed to do a show at Tuxedo Junction in Danbury a couple years back. And at that, the junction, if you will, was kind of finding a very odd time in the ownership and paying rent, if you will, and kind of stuff like that. So I didn't get to see interspecies yet, and I'm looking forward to when I can finally see that, because it's been a good few years since I have originally met Mr. Ed Wood. So I can't wait for interspecies to maybe come around here, because I see him go up to Canada. What the hell?
Well, because the reason is originally ISW started up in Canada. Because much like with us and Wood, it's a partnership between several different people, and the other partners live up in the Montreal area. So it started up there. When they started coming down this way stateside was when Wood first hooked up with them. And they ran a couple of times at some spot in East Hartford, and then they started running in Danbury at the Earlham Arts Theater, which has unfortunately closed. And they were, Tuxedo was supposed to happen, and then there was that whole fiasco. They ran a show WrestleMania weekend last year in Jersey, and then they ran another show at Matt Tremont's H2O building that he has shows at. They're working on their next big one. They do a show every couple of years called Boner Jam, and they're working on Boner Jam 5. I think they want to be running that somewhere around here. So fingers crossed.
Wow. I would be into some. Did you say Boner Jam? Like Boner Jam?
ISW always has funky names. Every year, what do you call it? When they were running, they would do their Burger King of the Ring tournament.
Now, it's like Wrestle Party up in Rhode Island, run by Sully Banger. It's very, very heavily character driven. Like I'll use an example, Isana, and I only use Isana as an example because I had the lovely Isana on here, and she talked about how she was a black cat and got very distracted mid-match from the buff dad with a little bit of catnip on a string or something. That stuff sounds so fun, but I've seen some interspecies stuff. That place is off the freaking a bunch of loony bins over there. Yep. Man, I cannot wait to check that place out just because of some of the pictures and some of the footage that I have seen in the past. So I do look forward to that. Now, you're a manager. Did you say a ref or a ring announcer rather? Ring announcer? Yep. Okay. You've done a couple of hats in wrestling. You see what's going on in wrestling and what it takes to make an event. Why become a promoter?
Because it was what I was groomed to do.
Okay. All right.
When I first started like managing, and I had already been doing commentary, like I said, Mike was my mentor. I lived with the man for a short time. I rented a room from his family. So like it was wake up, eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. And he saw that I had a creative eye. So he started molding me to be able to pick it up eventually. I just don't think it was going to be as soon as he thought. But it's like there's so many other like people in the business that have said it's a sickness. It's an addiction. And it is like so hectic and so painstaking and so freaking much to deal with, but I wouldn't give it up.
I've been doing since let me see. And this isn't no comparison to what it takes to build a show, but since March 19 up to now, I've done 63, this makes 64 interviews.
Damn.
I'm doing I'm doing 3 after work. I'm doing 4 or 5 on Saturdays and Sundays. And after the 25th is my last day. I gotta take a break.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized though? With all of this whole COVID thing messing the world up, with the whole COVID thing messing up the world right now, and I couldn't see the friends I've made. It's not just about wrestling. Over time, I've made so many friends with the talented men and women in the industry. I'm like, okay, I'm going to miss my wrestling fan friends, my wrestling fam, if you will. But how do I stay in touch with all of the men and women out there? Because everybody's just going to be stir crazy, being cooped up and all of this stuff. And, I know a lot of them in New York, State, City, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and abroad. But that's why I kept pushing it. I'm like, I'm just going to schedule as many that wants to do it. And I look at my calendar and it's littered with purple lines. I can't even read shit in it. There's so many purple lines. But again, I'm not trying to compare what it takes to do a show, but I think my addiction, I think it took over a little bit. And by the time I sat back and looked at my calendar, I go, Kincaid, what the fuck are you doing? So I'm going to take a little break after the 25th, not stirring the pot down, but just got to take a step back a little bit, get my breath, get my mind together a little bit, because I'm starting to burn out a little bit. I think just a little bit, not on the devil's lettuce, just, on everything, just in general. So now I mentioned a place out in New Britain called the Sports Palace. Wow. Holy shit. What some fun times that I had. And I didn't go there very many, but when I did go there, it was a fucking banger, man.
Yep.
Could you describe to the fans, because I don't like to keep talking a whole lot. I talk way too much anyways. Could you describe to the fans the environment it was in that place and like the setup? Because it wasn't just some normal wrestling, like a VFW or like a
it was like a nightclub in a factory building. Like,
oh man, the Sports Palace was so much fun, man. But it was like a double level kind of gig because it was an indoor kind of soccer place. Yep. And I seen there one time Tony Atlas versus Abdullah the Butcher in a no DQ, anything goes as a main event to a show. And I want to say it was like UFW or UW something, or I forget the call letters. Holy fuck. The first thing Abdullah does is take out a fork and starts jamming it in Tony Atlas's forehead, and that's how it began. I mean, there was no warming up when it's Tony Atlas versus Abdullah the Butcher. That place was effing crazy, man.
Yeah, that was. I saw old ECW shows there. I used to go to a lot of hardcore concerts at the Sports Palace in the mid '90s.
Really? So
I used to pay like $3 to see Hatebreed there, like every other weekend.
So they used to have like concerts, and then how does wrestling just kind of seep its way into the Sports Palace like that? You would have more of a better knowledge than I would.
I think it was just at the time they were looking to make revenue on the days where nothing else was there, so they would rent it out to whoever was willing to pay.
I got you, man. How the fuck didn't I know Hatebreed was jamming at the Sports Palace? I would have been there, bro.
Dude, I wish I still had. I used to keep like all the old flyers from back in the day of all the shows I used to go there. And it was like Hatebreed, Earth Crisis, Ground Zero, Snapcase, freaking like Madball, like all the big New York and Connecticut hardcore bands. Like they used to do like freaking like 10 bands for $15 at the Sports Palace like every other week.
Man, you can't beat that shit.
Yeah.
I say, and we spoke, like $15. $15 for wrestling, $10 for wrestling, $5 for wrestling. Sometimes it's free, all depending on where you go. The curiosity has got me. How, as a promoter, do you put a price tag on a ticket? Because you could go all over the spectrum with that. So how, as a promoter, do you kind of figure that out? Like, this is the kind of round number I'm looking for.
It's a science. You have to look at the size of the building you're at, how many seats you can fit in, how many seats you think you can fill, depending on the area and how much you advertise. And it's a weird, funky algorithm. I mean, because like back in the day, back when Defiant Pro we ran in Naugatuck, we used to run at the Portuguese Club. Back in 06, we were charging $15 a head, and people said we were charging too much. But it was a great venue, and there wasn't a bad seat in the place. And we had a lot of overhead. The place wasn't cheap to rent. Then there's places, like a lot of the companies that ran in like the Western Mass area, they were able to find Legion halls and VFWs that are cheaper to rent. So they're able to charge $10 a head. And then they would start doing like the front row for 15. I've never been a big proponent of charging more for front row at indie shows, because with indie shows, it's always a small venue unless you're at like a high school gymnasium and you don't have a bad seat. So I don't see charging the extra amount for the front row in that. What we used to do with the first few Dissension Pro shows was, it's something that ISW actually does as well, which is where we would do a VIP show from 7 to 8, and the main show would start at 8. Between 7 and 8, you would get a couple of bonus matches and your choice of seating. And it wasn't like pre-show student match. It was actual like main show caliber matches. We were like, I believe, like I'm guessing when you came to Sons of Italy, because we only ran a couple of shows there. It might not have been, but like there was one show when it was Just Incredible's retirement show, but his first retirement. We had 3 matches, and the main event of the VIP show was a 3-way match between Michael Santana, Johnny Torres, and Tornado Oscuro, which was one of Wagner's old students. But it was, we would dub those things as main event caliber matches. It wasn't just throw away, you're here early, so here's some students getting some ring time.
Right. No, that sounds actually like a cool concept, to be able to get in that hour extra, have a cool little experience before the show actually starts. I'm actually down with that, man. I'd be interested in that one. Now, when I went, I saw Just Incredible soiree in, and he was a referee that night.
That was a Lord of the Ring. Yep. Okay.
He did a little signing, and then later on in the main event, I want to say, and I'm trying to think back, and I suck at memory, it was Action Ortiz and Bobby Ocean for the belt, and Just Incredible.
That show.
Okay.
That was because that was that was the event you were at was when we crowned the first champion. It was Bobby Ocean in the finals, and we did a tournament that ran through it. So the final match was a 4-way elimination match, and it was Bobby Ocean, Hammer Tunis, I think Ortiz was in there, and I'm trying to remember the fourth. Zachary Pierre-Beaulieu.
Yeah. Z. Yes.
And it was a 4-way elimination. Yeah.
And that was when you crowned your first champion as Bobby Ocean?
Yep.
That was cool, because I haven't seen Just Incredible in years. And again, I knew like some of like Bobby Ocean, very synonymous, like wherever you kind of go in wrestling in New England, pretty much. And so I kind of knew Bobby Ocean. That was pretty much the only guy I really knew. And then I seen Just Incredible. I go, what the hell? Just Incredible.
And he wasn't even supposed to be there that day. He just showed up to hang out.
Yeah, I think I actually have a video clip. I'm gonna go dig that up and maybe share it up later on, because that was a cool. What I like to say, you know how they say, that was part of the history books in the WWE and all of that stuff. I like when I get to see those moments. Just Incredible crowning Bobby Ocean at DPW for the first ever heavyweight championship. That's like one of those moments in time that, I try to hang on to as, a wrestling fan, Now, DPW, it doesn't run very often. I'm kind of curious. Many others run maybe once a month, and then sometimes do smaller shows. And I know DPW is a different animal, but why only maybe once or twice a year?
So the plan originally was to run quarterly. We were going to run every 3 months. It's just between scheduling conflicts between medical issues, like I said, and just budgetary issues. And like I said, at the time when we were first getting our steam going, ISW was still running more frequently, so we had to kind of toe the line to make sure that we didn't step on any toes. Mm-hmm. So there were, we had originally planned to run quarterly, and it just hasn't worked out to that level yet. The plan is hopefully now we can. Now that I seem to be at the tail end of things, Wood seems to be the tail end of the things. Financially, we're in a better place. Hopefully, we can start doing that as soon as the world starts back up again.
Yeah, because again, I'd like to see, and it's cool because I mean I know Bristol's right down the road from me basically, but Torrington in the other direction is really not that far from me either. 10, 15 minutes, like 15 minutes or so. So like where you've been
popped up every day.
Yeah. So like a couple of those shows a year, throwing an hour, and especially like my daughter, she lives in Torrington and her husband, and I took her to a, who the heck was it? It was actually at the same exact building. Frig, what was the call letters?
I know what it was. Yes.
ETW. So we had a blast.
I was their booker shortly.
Oh, I will tell you one thing. That small, intimate building is so much fun. And I love the intimacy of the indie scene because of that fact. Even more so, there's no barriers. Not all companies do that. Some really, put up those barriers. And I'm not saying that they're, they shouldn't be there, but I love when the barriers are not there. I find it so much more cool. Do you know how many freaking times I've had Dan the Man on my lap, Bobby Ocean, Jay Bricks? Oh my God, Jay Bricks. I mean, the list goes. Dirtbag Dan came out doing a suicide dive, turned it into a spinning wheel kick, and knocked my shit out.
Yeesh.
So, did I remember a whole lot? No. Was it fun? Fuck yeah. I had a blast. So who are some of the talent? Because it's been a while for DPW that I've been to or have seen advertised. Do you have some talent that you already have are mainstays or that you're looking at that you'd like to bring in DPW?
So we had some mainstays, and I'm sure they'll still be around. Obviously Bobby Ocean's always family. Dan the Man will always be family. Len Oddity, Jim Sullivan, Jim Anderson. Trying to think who else. Hank Flanagan from New York. A couple of the House of Glory guys. Dante Draconis if he chooses to come back. Jack Kruger. We've got those mainstays. However, when we do come back, there's going to be a big change in the guard. There's been a lot of guys that I've been looking at bringing in. And there's a lot of guys who we're not going to be using anymore. So it's time to shake things up.
This is just between me and you. There's nobody else that even watches this shit, probably besides my mom and dad. Just whisper like 7 new guys that are coming in, just like 7. No?
I'll tell you one person who I've been talking to that I told when we ran, I'd be calling him to bring him in.
Okay.
And that's the Meadowlands monster, Lou Bruno.
Ooh, I like that name. That's a good one to bring. Oh, I like that one. How about 5 more? No? Okay. All right. I don't want to push my luck. Now, you've had a medical, I don't even know how to put it. You've gone through a lot of shit medically. Has that really been a thing that's really kept you away from the business? Because I seen you for a while there, and then I seen you disappear for a longer while. Is that what's kind of keeping you away from the business right now?
Yeah, right now it definitely is. Because like I said, like ever since I want to say about October of 2018 is when it became a major hindrance, and I really got laid into by the doctors saying you're not allowed to do anything, and that was when I had to put the brakes on everything. Before that, I was dealing with a lot, and I probably would have recovered a lot quicker had I not been pushing myself to so many extremes. Just unfortunately, I had a company to run and not a lot of people helping out.
And I've seen you in the past after meeting you a couple times at these shows, but then I would see you go to a show as a fan because we're all fans, and I see that you've been in the business for a while, a good while. Are you still that kind of fan that turns on the TV and says, I'm checking Raw out tonight, or, AEW Dynamite? Are you still watching that kind of current product nowadays?
I watch WWE every week. I always catch Raw. I always catch NXT. I don't catch SmackDown as much, but I would watch Ring of Honor, and I would watch MLW, and anything else. I mean, I'm still, I want to see what's out there.
Mm-hmm. I think it's
who's doing what, and who's succeeding and who's not.
Absolutely. And if you watch a little bit, or even check out some highlights from said companies, you can kind of get a gauge, like you said, who's out there, what are they doing, what kind of performance are they putting on, how are the fans accepting them, and all of these things that it really takes to that package, if you will. There's way too many aspects to make a wrestler succeed in wrestling. It's just so much that it takes. As a promoter, it's kind of the same token, because you got to have a strong mind and a strong will to push through the bullshit that it takes with, just like anything in life, at work or at play. There's, the politics and such, and people dropping off that they can't make the show, or, they got shit to do, or whatever. And so that card subject to change, does that throw you for a look at the eye roll? Does that card subject to change, does that burn your ass, or are you like, you know what, this is wrestling, I got to suck it up, get somebody in placement? And how hard is it to find that replacement?
So luckily, learning under Mike, I learned how to book on the fly really early on, because we would literally, like I said, back when we had the place on East Main of Waterbury, and we would run the weekly TV tapings. We would put it up on the internet later on. We didn't know who was going to show up. We would have 2 or 3 guys that committed the week before, so we'd announce like 1 or 2 matches. The rest was who showed up. All right, let's do this. There were literally days, and I shit you not, in the back office, we had a wall that was painted with whiteboard paint, so we could write on it with dry erase markers. Mm-hmm. We would put up the first half of the show, and then just intermission. Come intermission, we'd book the second half of the show. And that's how it went. So luckily, having to deal with card subject to change, it's still a bitch. It's still stressful, but not as much as it has been for other people that I've seen struggle. My ongoing gag is that if you ever notice, when you look at the flyers for DPW, you always see like 1 or 2 marquee matches signed, and then you see the collage of talent. That's how I like to put it, because I like to put it as no one's more important than anyone else on this level. Everyone deserves equal recognition. Mm-hmm. And so I'll do the big swatch of people, and every show we'll get to an hour before the show, and I'll look at it and go, every person's here who's going to drop out, because it has not failed. One show, at least one person has out like an hour before the show, and I've had to retool something.
Hey, that's what they call wrestling. Sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches. Roll with the punches. You see what I did there? Sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches in wrestling. Now I know we talked in length about JJ Alexander when we first sat down, and I'm trying to go over a couple of the things that might have touched on back then that I didn't touch on now. I got 2 more interviews tonight. One is Brian Albertson, and the dude will bleed. His forehead will get cut open if he just stubs his toe. I've seen it happen before. I'm worried about that guy. And then I got Steve Savage coming on, and that dude's just a fucking loose cannon. I don't know what to expect. I'll probably end up taking a bump before that episode is over. So I have a full schedule ahead of me. So I would like to make sure that I touched upon everything that I should. Is there anything that I missed, or something that you would like to say to the fans, to your peers, or what's going on with the company that we haven't touched on? Anything at all, please.
I mean, really, just as far as the fans go, the fans are the backbone of this business. None of us would be doing what we're doing without them. And it's a trying time, but things will get better. And when they do, I hope to see as many of them out there. Like here's hoping. We're gonna be dealing with a big transition time when everyone's able to go out and about again, and there's gonna be that level of fear where people aren't gonna want to be in places with a lot of people all at once. But I'm really hoping that this in particular is going to cause a big insurgence for indie wrestling again, where people, because they've been cooped up, because they've been deprived, are just clamoring for something, and everybody that runs will benefit. That everybody will have a packed house. I wish the best for everyone, competitors or whatnot, no matter who's running what, whether we see eye to eye or not. We're all family in one way or another. Families fight. Families don't always speak to each other. But in the end, in this business, if one succeeds, we all succeed. And that's all I can hope for.
Absolutely, because that's what kind of makes it kind of churn, because just like Impact Wrestling right now, they are very independent roster driven. There's no mainstay, basically. There's no mainstay roster in Impact. So, I mean, it makes it all go around. And once you get in, again, everybody succeeds. As long as it's flourishing and everybody's doing their performance and their job and staying safe and all of that, dude, when everybody is on their game, wrestling is just so fucking amazing. I just absolutely love wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate your time, Mr. Alexander, because I know it's a weird time. Some of us might be in a little bit more than others, but I really do appreciate your time today, talking to us, the fans. That's what this is all about. This ain't for my dumbass. This is for all of the fans to get to know, the people that I've met over the course, as many as I can get in contact with. But before I let you go, how do the fans find your promotion? Is it face page, Twitter, whatever? Why don't you give us some of that social media stuff?
So you can find us on Facebook at Dissension Pro Wrestling or Dissension Pro. You can find us on YouTube. If you keyword Dissension Pro Wrestling, you'll find our channel. You can find us on Twitter under Dissension Pro. You can also find the podcast associated with us that I've kind of been doing solo off and on here and there on Twitter under Full Circle Radio and on Facebook under Full Circle Radio Reloaded. We have a website. It's going to go under a huge overhaul in the next couple of months. Once that is, then I'll re-announce it because we're going to put a lot more into it. And I think that, and we have an Instagram. I forgot. Dissension Pro Wrestling on Instagram.
I've had an IG for probably 4 or 5 years, and I think I've used it once for an El Jabroni post.
I just signed up for my own while I was in the hospital out of boredom, so I've got one now. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram, JJ Alexander DPW.
Cool. Well, again, thank you for all the information you've shared with us today. This has been a really cool sit down, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Stirring the Pot with Don Kincaid. And my very special guest with only one footprint in the industry, right now. Hey, whoa! I did not see that coming. I should have never said that. JJ Alexander, thank you, my friend. Holy shit.